The Arizona sun blazed mercilessly over the dusty plains as Ayanna Redfeather crouched behind the red rocks, watching the tall stranger work his land. For 3 moons she had observed him from afar, this mysterious farmer who had settled on the border between Apache territory and the white man's world. His name was Colt Steele, and everything about him defied the soft, civilized men she had known. Colt stood 6 feet 4 inches tall, his broad shoulders straining against the sweat-soaked cotton shirt as he wielded his massive tool with expert precision. The way he handled his 45-centimeter steel plow was mesmerizing, each thrust into the virgin earth deliberate, powerful, rhythmic. Sweat glistened on his bronzed skin like morning dew on desert flowers, and his hands, those calloused, capable hands that could tame wild horses and break stubborn ground with equal mastery. Ayanna's breath caught in her throat as she watched him remove his shirt, revealing a torso carved from granite and scarred by countless battles with nature. Her own body responded traitorously, her secret garden growing warm and moist despite her betrothal to Chief Running Bear, a man she respected but had never desired. "You watch the white farmer." "Again!" came a voice behind her. Ayanna spun around to face her childhood friend, Singing Wolf, whose knowing eyes held both concern and amusement. "I was merely ensuring he poses no threat to our people." Singing Wolf's lips curved into a sly smile. "Ah, yes. And I suppose the way you bite your lower lip and press your thighs together is part of this surveillance?" Heat flooded Ayanna's cheeks. "You speak nonsense, do I? Tell me, sister, when Chief Running Bear's hands touch you, does your body sing like the desert wind? Does your heart race like wild mustangs?" Ayanna's silence was answer enough. Running Bear was a good man, a strong leader, but his touch felt like duty rather than desire. When he kissed her, she felt nothing but obligation. When he spoke of their upcoming union, her spirit felt caged like a captured eagle. "The farmer looks this way," Singing Wolf whispered urgently. "Indeed." Colt had stopped his work and was scanning the rocks where they hid. His steel-gray eyes seemed to pierce through stone and shadow, searching. Ayanna felt exposed, as if those penetrating eyes could see through her buckskin dress to the trembling flesh beneath. Suddenly, Colt began walking toward their hiding place, his long legs eating up the distance with predatory grace. His boots, worn leather that had seen 1,000 miles, crunched against the desert floor. The sound made Ayanna's pulse quicken inexplicably. "We should go," Singing Wolf urged. But Ayanna found herself frozen, mesmerized by the approaching figure. Colt stopped just feet from their rocky shelter, close enough that Ayanna could smell his masculine scent, leather, honest sweat, and something wild that made her secret garden pulse with forbidden hunger. "I know you're there." His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Been watching you watch me for weeks now. Question is, are you planning to put an arrow in my back? Or are you just curious about how a white man works his land?" The humor in his tone surprised her. Most white men spoke to her people with fear or contempt, but this one sounded almost amused. Ayanna made a decision that would change everything. She stood slowly, revealing herself to the farmer's intense gaze. When their eyes met, it was like lightning striking dry tinder. Instant, explosive, dangerous. "I am Ayanna of the Red Feather clan," she said, proud chin raised despite her racing heart. Colt's eyes traveled slowly down her form, taking in her long black hair adorned with eagle feathers, her buckskin dress that hugged her curves like a second skin, her bare feet that had carried her silently across miles of desert. "Colt Steele," he replied, touching the brim of his hat. "And you, Miss Ayanna, are either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish. Perhaps both," she admitted, surprised by her own boldness. A slow smile spread across his weathered face, transforming his harsh features into something devastatingly handsome. "Well then, since you've been studying my farming techniques so intently, maybe you'd like a closer look at my equipment." Ayanna's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird as she followed Colt toward his farmhouse. Every step felt like a betrayal of her people, her betrothal, her very identity. Yet she couldn't turn back. Something about this mysterious farmer pulled at her like the moon pulls the tides. "Your 45-centimeter plow," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's larger than anything I've seen before." Colt chuckled, a rich sound that made her stomach flutter. "Takes a big tool to break virgin ground properly. Can't be gentle with land that's never been worked before. You have to be firm, persistent, know exactly where to apply pressure." He led her to where his massive steel plow gleamed in the afternoon sun. The implement was indeed impressive. 45 centimeters of polished steel designed to penetrate the earth's resistance and create fertile furrows for planting. "Want to see how it works?" Colt asked, his gray eyes twinkling with mischief. Before Ayanna could respond, he grasped the plow's handles with those powerful hands she'd been fantasizing about. His muscles bunched and flexed as he demonstrated the proper technique. How to grip firmly, how to thrust forward with controlled power, how to maintain steady rhythm even when the ground fought back. The secret, he explained, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead, is knowing when to push hard and when to ease up. Too gentle, and you'll never break through. Too rough, and you'll damage what you're trying to cultivate. Ayanna found herself mesmerized by the metaphor, her body responding to the raw masculinity of his demonstration. The way his shirt stretched across his broad back, the play of muscles in his forearms, the confident way he handled his equipment, it all made her secret garden grow slick with forbidden moisture. "Would you like to try?" Colt offered, stepping aside. I shouldn't," Ayanna stammered, but her hands were already reaching for the handles. Colt moved behind her, his large hands covering hers on the wooden grips. His chest pressed against her back, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body like a forge. His breath tickled her ear as he spoke. "Relax," he murmured, his voice husky. "Let me guide you. Feel how the steel wants to move, how the earth yields when you apply pressure in just the right spot." Together, they pushed the plow forward. Ayanna gasped as the steel blade sliced through the resistant soil, creating a deep, fertile furrow. The sensation was intoxicating. The power, the penetration, the way the earth opened up beneath their combined strength. "That's it," Colt encouraged, his lips dangerously close to her neck. "You're a natural. Most people fight the tool, but you're working with it, letting it do what it was designed to do." Ayanna's knees went weak at the praise and the proximity of his hard body. She could feel something firm pressing against her lower back. His belt buckle, she told herself, though her body suggested otherwise. "Ayanna." The sharp voice cut through the sensual haze like a war cry. They sprang apart to see Chief Running Bear approaching on his painted stallion, flanked by 3 warriors. The chief's face was a mask of controlled fury, his dark eyes promising violence. "My betrothed," Running Bear said, his voice deadly calm. "What are you doing with this white dog?" Colt stepped protectively in front of Ayanna, his hand moving instinctively toward the Colt 45 on his hip. "Easy there, Chief. The lady was just admiring my farming equipment." Running Bear's eyes narrowed as he took in Ayanna's flushed face and disheveled appearance. "Is this true, woman? Were you merely admiring his tools?" Ayanna felt trapped between 2 worlds, 2 men, 2 destinies. She could lie, return to her people, marry Running Bear as planned. Or she could speak the truth that burned in her heart like wildfire. "I was fascinated," she said quietly, her eyes meeting Colt's, "by his 45 centimeters of steel. I've never seen anything so impressive." The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone present. Running Bear's face darkened like a storm cloud, while Colt's eyes blazed with something that might have been admiration or desire. "You shame yourself and our people," Running Bear spat. "Return to the village, now." But Ayanna stood her ground, her chin raised defiantly. "I am not your property yet, Running Bear. I go where I choose." The chief's hand moved to his tomahawk. "Then you choose dishonor over duty, lust over loyalty?" "I choose freedom." Ayana replied, her voice growing stronger. Freedom to decide my own fate. The tension crackled between the three like lightning before a storm. Running Bear's warriors shifted restlessly on their horses, hands moving toward their weapons, while Colt remained perfectly still, a coiled rattlesnake ready to strike. Freedom? Running Bear laughed bitterly. You speak of freedom while throwing yourself at this white invader like a mare in heat? Ayana's eyes flashed dangerously. Watch your tongue, Chief. I am still daughter of the Red Feather clan, and I demand respect. Respect is earned, Running Bear snarled, dismounting his horse with fluid grace. And you have earned nothing but shame with your wanton behavior. Colt stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. I'd be real careful about how you speak to the lady, Chief. Where I come from, a man who insults a woman in front of another man usually ends up eating dirt. Running Bear's lips curved in a cold smile. Your customs mean nothing here, white man. This is Apache land, and she is Apache woman. She belongs to me. I belong to no one. Ayana's voice rang out across the desert like a war cry. I am not a horse to be traded or a field to be claimed. The chief's face darkened further. You forget yourself, woman. Our marriage was arranged by your father before his death. You will honor his wishes or what? Colt interrupted, his hand now resting openly on his gun. You'll force her? That's not marriage, Chief. That's slavery. Running Bear's warriors tensed, but their leader held up a hand. His eyes glittered with malicious intelligence as he studied the white farmer. You think you understand our ways, white man? You think your big plow and strong back make you worthy of an Apache woman? Running Bear's voice dripped with contempt. Tell me, farmer, have you ever taken a scalp? Have you ever ridden into battle against your enemies? Have you ever proven your worth as a warrior? Colt's jaw tightened. I've proven my worth in other ways. Have you? Running Bear circled them like a predator. Ayana, tell this soft farmer what it means to be Apache. Tell him about the trials a man must pass to claim a woman of our people. Ayana's heart sank as she realized where this was leading. Running Bear, no. The old ways are still our ways, the chief cut her off. If this white dog truly desires you, let him prove himself worthy. Let him face the trial of the desert warrior. Colt looked between them, confused. What trial? Ayana closed her eyes, knowing she had to explain. It is an ancient test. 3 challenges that prove a man's courage, skill, and virility. Many warriors have died attempting it. And if I refuse? Colt asked. Running Bear smiled coldly. Then you prove you are unworthy, and Ayana returns to fulfill her obligations. If you accept and fail, you die. If you accept and succeed, his smile faltered slightly, then by Apache law, you may claim her as your woman. Colt looked at Ayana, seeing the fear and hope warring in her dark eyes. What are the 3 challenges? First, Running Bear began, you must survive 1 night alone in the desert with no water, no weapons, no tools, only what the land provides. Second, one of the warriors added, you must tame the wild stallion that no man has ever ridden, the black demon horse we call Shadow of Death. And third? Colt asked, though he suspected he already knew. Running Bear's smile turned predatory. You must defeat me in single combat. Hand to hand, no weapons. The fight ends when one of us can no longer stand. Ayana gasped. Running Bear, you cannot. He is not trained in our fighting ways. Then perhaps he should have thought of that before coveting what belongs to another. The chief replied coldly. Colt was quiet for a long moment, studying the faces around him. Finally, he looked directly at Ayana. If I do this, if I accept these challenges, will you be free to choose your own path? By Apache law, yes, she whispered. Colt nodded slowly, then turned to face Running Bear. I accept your trial, Chief, but I have one condition of my own. Running Bear raised an eyebrow. You are in no position to make demands, white man. Maybe not, Colt agreed, but I'm making one anyway. When I succeed, not if, when, you give me your word as a chief that you'll respect Ayana's choice, whatever it may be. No more talk of arranged marriages or obligations. The chief's eyes narrowed. You are very confident for a man about to die. Colt's smile was sharp as his plow blade. Chief, you have no idea what I'm capable of. But you're about to find out. 3 days later, the entire Apache village had gathered to witness the final challenge. Colt had survived the desert night by following coyote tracks to a hidden spring and fashioning shelter from sagebrush and stones. He had tamed Shadow of Death by approaching the wild stallion with patience rather than force, earning the magnificent beast's respect through gentle persistence rather than brutal dominance. Now he stood in the circle of warriors, stripped to the waist, his bronzed skin gleaming with sweat in the afternoon sun. Across from him, Running Bear crouched in fighting stance, his muscles coiled like a mountain cat ready to pounce. Ayanna watched from the crowd, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. In 3 days, she had seen Colt transform from mysterious farmer to desert warrior. The way he had gentled the wild horse, speaking to it in low, soothing tones until the beast allowed him to mount, it had been the most sensual thing she had ever witnessed. Begin, the tribal elder called out. Running Bear struck first, his fist whistling through the air where Colt's head had been a split second before. The farmer moved with surprising grace for such a large man, dancing away from the chief's attacks while studying his opponent's patterns. Stand still and fight, coward, Running Bear snarled, launching a series of rapid strikes. Colt caught the chief's wrist, using his momentum to spin him around and slam him to the ground. I'm not a coward, Chief. I'm just smarter than you think. Running Bear rolled away and sprang to his feet, circling warily. You fight like an old woman. I fight like a man who has something worth fighting for, Colt replied, his eyes finding Ayanna in the crowd. The chief followed his gaze and smiled coldly. You think she will choose you? You think one night of forbidden touching makes you worthy of an Apache princess? I think, Colt said quietly, that she deserves to choose for herself. With a roar of rage, Running Bear charged. This time Colt didn't dodge. He met the chief head-on, their bodies colliding with the force of 2 bulls. They grappled, muscles straining, each seeking advantage. Running Bear was skilled, but Colt had something the chief lacked. Desperation born of love. When Running Bear tried to throw him, Colt twisted and took the chief down with him. They rolled in the dust, trading positions, neither able to gain decisive advantage. The crowd roared as the 2 warriors fought with primal intensity. Sweat and blood mixed with desert dust as they battled for dominance, for honor, for the right to claim the woman they both desired. Finally, Colt managed to pin Running Bear, his forearm pressed against the chief's throat. Yield, he gasped, his own chest heaving with exhaustion. Running Bear's eyes blazed with fury, but he could barely breathe, let alone fight. Slowly, reluctantly, he tapped the ground in submission. Colt released him immediately and stood, offering his hand to help the defeated chief to his feet. After a moment's hesitation, Running Bear accepted the gesture. You fought with honor, the chief admitted grudgingly. The woman is yours to claim. If she will have you, all eyes turned to Ayanna. She stood slowly, her heart in her throat as she walked into the circle. Colt waited, not presuming, not demanding, simply offering himself and letting her choose. I choose, she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. The man who sees me as an equal, not a possession. The man who would risk everything not to own me, but to free me. She walked to Colt and placed her hand in his. I choose you, Colt Steele, not because you won these trials, but because you were willing to try. That night, in Colt's farmhouse, they finally completed the dance that had begun weeks ago by the plow. Ayanna marveled at the gentleness of his calloused hands as they explored her body, the way he worshipped her like sacred ground. When he finally joined with her, sliding his impressive length into her secret garden, she cried out as thunder rolled across the desert sky. They moved together in ancient rhythm, her body accepting his steel with eager welcome. My desert flower, he whispered against her neck as she rode him like the wild stallion he had tamed. My beautiful, brave warrior woman. The thunder in the desert came for both of them simultaneously, her body milking his as he released his essence deep within her welcoming depths. They collapsed together, spent and satisfied, their bodies slick with the honest sweat of passion. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the stars, Ayanna traced the scars on his chest. "No regrets?" she asked softly. Colt captured her hand and kissed her palm. "Only that it took so long to find you. You're worth every trial, every challenge, every risk. Even betraying a chief for a farmer's 45 centimeters?" she teased. Colt's laughter rumbled through his chest. "Especially that, my love. Especially that."